Hello, friends. Last week we read The Dot about a little girl named Vashti who didn't think she was very much of an artist at all, but who drew a dot, and her teacher showed her that that dot was actually really interesting and important, and then she became a very accomplished artist. At the end of the story, a little boy came up to Vashti and, admiring her work, said, "I can't draw a straight line with a ruler." Let's read that part again. Vashti noticed a little boy gazing up at her. "You're a really great artist. I wish I could draw," he said. "I bet you can," said Vashti. "Me? No, not me. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler." Vashti smiled. She handed the boy a blank sheet of paper. "Show me." The boy's pencil shook as he drew his line. Vashti stared at the boy's squiggle, and then she said, "Sign it." He was really surprised to find out that his squiggle was actually a wonderful work of art. That story inspired me about lines and how lines can make interesting artwork. Most lines in nature are not straight. Straight lines are great. They give us architecture. They're really important. Wonderful artwork is made with straight lines and rulers. But most of nature is not straight lines. Most of nature is crooked and bendy and imperfect, and that's what makes it interesting. So this inspired me to make a collection. I made a collection of sticks from my yard this morning, and I'm going to show you a few of them right now. Here's one. Do you see how bendy the lines are? And it makes the shape of the tree it came from, but this is probably the tippy end of a tree branch because it's so thin. Here's one that's longer. This one is very long and very curvy. Here's another one that is kind of like a half moon, and it has lots of bumps in it. I have a thicker one. This one reminds me a little bit of a bent arm with an elbow. I have a piece of tree bark that I found on the ground. It's always important to get tree bark from the ground and not take it off the tree. And finally, I have a little bit of a wedge from a larger branch. So you can see this is what the outside tree bark looked like, where it's dark and it has some lichens growing. And then on the inside, it's lighter, and that's the wood from the inside of the tree. I'm going to show you today some techniques to help you draw interesting lines that are inspired by your observations of tree branches. This could be a really interesting page in your noticing book, that after you make a collection of sticks and twigs from outside, you can draw them or paint them into your noticing book and compare how they're different. I'm going to use a crayon, but you could use a marker. You can use anything that you want. And I'm going to show you how lines change with our crayon depending on how hard we press. So we noticed that the line in the tree branch, it's sometimes thin, it's sometimes thick, and it's very bendy. If I use my crayon and I press lightly, I will have a thinner line. If I press more heavily, I'll have a darker line and maybe even a little bit thicker. And I can even twirl my crayon as I draw. And that will give me a really bendy line that describes a stick very well. It's the same with paint. I have my watercolors. I have a paintbrush. I have water. And I dip my paintbrush in the water and get some water off of it, because if it's too watery, it might seep through the pages of my noticing book. If it does, that's fine, but you don't need too much water. I'm going to dip it in the brown paint. You can use a different color if you want. I wanted to use brown. And it's the same, that if I press lightly and with the tip of my paintbrush, I'm going to get a thinner line. But if I press down harder, not like this stabbing because that hurts the brush, but if I press down harder with the side of my brush, I'm going to get a darker and thicker line. So let's try it. Here we have the very tippy tip, and then I'm pressing down more and it gets thicker, and then I'm pressing up more and I'm starting to twirl my brush too. And thick and thin and thick and thin. So now let's try drawing a stick or painting a stick from observation. That really just means what you notice. It doesn't have to be a picture-perfect photograph of the actual stick, but it's what you notice is special about that stick and the way your hand draws or paints it. So let's take one of these V sticks, and I'm going to dip my brush in my water. I'm going to use my paint, and I'm just going to do my best. I'm going to draw it coming up and then going off to the side. You can try to do this without even looking at the paper and only looking at the stick. That is fun to do. And this one, wow, it's really tall. It goes up. And then I can go back over my lines because I might think, actually, that one over there was a little bit thicker on the stick. And I might go in and decide to draw some bumps. So here's the beginning of my drawing or painting of that stick. And here's an example of how you can do it with a crayon, which is very similar to doing it with a marker. Here I have this one. And I'm going to make my half moon shape, but I'm really making sure that I'm pressing with my crayon in some areas heavily and making other areas lighter. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to make my bumps, because those bumps are very interesting. And I noticed too that the very top, even though it's bumpy all around, the bottom is thicker and the very top is a bit thinner, except for the tippy top, which is that kind of pointy thing. This is a very enjoyable and calming activity, and it's a great way to use your collections and your artwork. You can go on and on and on drawing sticks and seeing what different lines you can make with them. And the last thing I wanted to show you, there's so much to show you, but just one other thing that you can do is you can make the stick become the artwork. you can take your stick or piece of wood. We have some driftwood in our house that we have found on the beach. It's kind of like a stick that's been in the water for a long time. And my son Jonah took this piece of driftwood and he colored it with oil pastels, and it's become its own work of art. We found this branch. It was a vine on a tree, and there was a windstorm and the wind blew it off. We picked it up and we painted it. You can also color it with marker or crayon. So the possibilities are endless. I hope you enjoy making a collection of sticks, making some drawings or paintings of them, or maybe turning them into the artwork themselves. Have a great week, and I'll see you again soon. And one other thing that I haven't mentioned in my other videos yet is that, of course, we would love to see your artwork on the Padlet. So be sure to post some of your artwork, whether it's dots or leaf rubbings or sticks or anything else. Take care. Bye for now.